Welcome to Pro Football Enterprises YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Leave us a quick note in the comment section about how you feel about what's been going on with training camp and Washington Commanders, how you feel about the Terry McLaurin situation, RFK deal. We're going to touch on all of this tonight, but if you have any thoughts, let us know in the comment section. Also, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm Dan Quinn, backwards hat, Callan Cowherd. Look away, please. I know this is very unprofessional in your eyes, but obviously he's watching, of course. But make sure you look away. Um, Tonight we're previewing Washington Commanders secondary, also doing a couple housekeeping things because there's been a lot that's happened since we did the, I guess, emergency video when Terry McLaurin requested a trade. So we got a lot to get to tonight. But Ben, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, man, and thanks everybody for watching. We've had several people add on to the subscriptions lately. We've even heard from a couple of them in the notes section, so thank y'all very much. We're secondary focused tonight. I promise we're going to get there, but before we get there, there's a lot of other stuff happening with the Commanders too, like Robinson already mentioned. So hang with us. We'll work our way through some of the early stuff, and we will get to the secondary, which I'm cautiously optimistic about.
Yeah, I am as well. I feel like that looking at last year, even if things don't pan out the way that, we want them to for the secondary, in comparison to last year, I mean, massive upgrades.
Right.
Oh, massive upgrades. Going into last year, I think the number one corner was Benjamin St. Juste. So, and we were still hoping that maybe Emmanuel Forbes could do something, but obviously that didn't work out. So it was a mess last year. Obviously, the secondary was just not in a great place. Um, it had its moments, Mikey Sanders still, Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin, some good moments, but overall just not a great secondary. Much improved, at least on paper, this year, and we will get to that. But first, big news. I don't have a slide for this, but Terry McLaurin obviously requested a trade. We had the video. If you want to see our reaction to all that, you can, look at last week's. As long as he hasn't signed a new contract extension, it'll still be relevant at the time of posting this video. Um, the only big thing is that, since the trade request, there was a report that came out today from I can't remember if it was Diana City or Nikki Javala that said, well, he's he's not looking for DK money. He's looking for aspects of that contract. He's not doesn't want the exact thing. So that tells me that he doesn't want 33 million AAV, but he wants the 60 some million guaranteed or aspects of that. Like it's all semantics now. And to me, again, this is the agent because it's like, okay, nobody's heard any numbers. Nobody's heard any numbers. Nobody's heard anything. The biggest thing we've had is a reporter saying that he's looking for, or the Commanders offered him 27 or in that 27-29 range, which again wasn't confirmed. Stephen A. Smith said that the team offered him 27. And then Adam Schefter said he's that Terry McLaurin's looking for DK money, right? And now there's a report today from a local person that's saying, hey, he's not looking exactly for DK money. So no one's heard any numbers, but all of a sudden this reporter has, not saying they're not good at their job, because they are, but to me, that's the agent walking this back, right? It's like, well, actually, we're not looking exactly for DK money. It's like we're working a little bit. I think that's trying to save face. And like I said, I think this agent is done in less than a week. I think Terry McLaurin's going to fire him before the start of the season. They're going to get something done.
I read it the same way when I heard the comments you telling me about the comments today. When you hear somebody say he's not really looking for all the DK stuff, just some of it. I read that the exact same way. I mean, I instantly thought the same thing, and that's good news for Commanders fans. And Terry's still going to get a very nice deal. But you and I talked about it for a whole hour plus last week, so go check it out, Commanders fans. We did an in-depth, in-dive thing on that with Terry McLaurin and all the aspects of it. We won't rehash that again, but it was good news. When I heard that, I said, yes, the agent is now starting to kind of filter out a little bit of, hey, we don't quite need everything about the DK deal, so maybe we'll just settle for a really good deal. and that's good news for Washington.
I mean, I don't know. So if we look at it now, okay, from the team's perspective, if they're looking to balance this roster out and get the most out of it with Jane Daniels on a rookie deal, it in concept, it is probably not the wisest investment to give a 30-year-old receiver 60 plus million guaranteed. Granted, I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but just from a team's perspective, it's like, okay, how many more years does this receiver have of elite play? Where are the other areas we need? Defensive line, linebacker, maybe more secondary that we'll get to later. Um, can we allocate those assets elsewhere that's going to be better use for the team, right? Or Debo's contract is up, and Adam Peters is much more familiar with Debo Samuel than he is Terry McLaurin just on an experience basis. Um, Again, not saying I want Debo over Terry McLaurin. I'm just putting it out from the team's perspective here. So, like, what you have to pay him 15 some odd million this season, and then you can franchise tag him next year for 28. So you're giving him about 41, 42 million guaranteed over the next, or even it's a pay as you go type deal. You know, you don't have to pay him guaranteed money. That works better for the owner. That's fitting the bill for a $2.7 million stadium. Um, and or billion dollar, excuse me. And I mean, 41 million over the next 2 years versus 60 some over the next two or three. I mean, that financially just makes sense for the T's perspective. I don't want to hang on to this too much, but to me, like, I understand the team's not super motivated to get it done, but McLaurin's trying to make them motivated, and it's not working out too well.
It's not. It's an argument what you're talking about. I've been making for years. Even I've carried it all the way to mid-level quarterbacks. I'm like, dang it, I know this quarterback is decent, but couldn't you take $50 million and trade him away and make a better team and get another guy in here playing quarterback, a younger rookie? You know, so it's an argument I'm well familiar with. Um, my take on it is this: I think McLaurin's good for the next 2 seasons, but even if he's only good for this year, I'll take it. I'll run that risk of a second year in which we're vastly overpaying him. He's underperforming because of age or injury. If in 25 he can get on the field and help us make another playoff push, right?
Yeah.
If that's what we get out of it, and then we have to, work our way out of it in 26 and 27. Oh well, I'm willing to do it. But no, I agree with you from a team perspective. What I would want to do as a GM, a lot of times players and agents just won't let you play ball that way, right? But I'm in favor of doing it that way.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong here. I want Terry McLaurin signed as soon as possible. I want him to retire, in Washington. I still have trouble saying commander sometimes. I want I want him to retire in Washington. I want him to live out the rest of his days here. Like I love the guy, but it has to make financial sense. And, we'll see what happens in the next couple days. Hopefully just a couple days, not a couple weeks, because the longer it goes on, the longer this just drags out and it's just not pretty.
Let's hope.
Um, so a big thing that is going on now is that the DC Council approved the RFK deal. It's not final. Um, there is a secondary vote that needs to happen in September. Uh, why I don't know politics. Politics is why. But the DC Council did tell the team that you can go ahead and start moving forward with things like it's just a formality, the second vote. Now, if I told you in pre-production, for me, like I'm not spending a lot of money until that vote goes through, but I think the DC Council's like, hey, I know you're on a timeline, so you can go ahead and start getting something started until we have to wait for this thing to process through. Which was nice of them. They didn't have to tell them to do that. You know, they could have said, hey, you need to
Yep.
wait. But this is relatively a given at this point. You know, you don't like to say everything's done until everything's been signed, finalized, and all that, but for the most part, it's done. Going back to RFK, it's going to be a $3.7 billion in total. The project is the $1 billion that the city is pledging is going to infrastructure, the parking garage, the if there's going to be an extra metro station or a new metro station that's put there, the development around the stadium, the housing development that's going to be there, some retail that's going to be there. And then the sports complex for youth sports that's going to be there. That's where that $1 billion is going to. As far as I know, 2.7 plus. It's going to be a lot more than 2.7, I'd imagine. But that's the stadium that Josh Harris and the his owners group is going to be putting together. This is a render that was released back in April. Believe it or not, it was all the way back in April that this thing was first brought up. Um, if it looks like this, I'd be happy with it. Not that we'll get too much into look tonight, but big thing is return to RFK finally, in quotations, is happening. Your reaction?
It's great news. And you mentioned it, it's not final, and it would have been bigger news had it been a no vote from the council than the vote that we got. But still, this is really good. You and I talked several months ago about this could be a very long, drawn out process. Nobody wanted that, but we've seen this stuff stretch on for a year, 2 years. In some cities, we've seen this stretch on for decades, you know. And we talked about how the owner really just he did not feel obligated, even though he wanted to stay here in DC, he did not feel obligated that he had to do that. So that in itself put a deadline, a ticking clock on that, right? That he had another option he could go do. I'm a little surprised if it ends up this way, if it does get final in September. I'm a little surprised that it went so quick. Now, it doesn't feel quick when you're waiting, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
again, we've seen this take years, we've seen this take decades. So if this actually is what's going to happen, and we talked about how the votes, we weren't sure about the council, right? Several weeks ago, it was like it looked like three no's, three yes, and the rest were all sitting in the middle, and they all tilted to the yes. So I to me this is as good a news as you could get, and this was about as quick of a timeline as you could possibly have expected here or hoped for, especially in this town, man. I'm telling you, this this is great. So fingers crossed. Let's dot our I's, cross our T's. Let's make sure it is final. But to me, this is great all across the board here.
Now, it has been a bit longer, mainly because if we go back to last summer and trying to get the federal government to push things along to give DC the land back, um, it has been a longer process dealing with the federal government, getting all that stuff approved. I mean, it was the 11th hour that this thing got done last December for us to even have the ability to go to DC and ask for, hey, can we build a stadium here, basically. So that was an 11th hour thing that happened in December, and it was months and months of so much back and forth with the politics of it all, and I'm sure the election had a lot to do with it and so forth, but not to get too political here. Good news is it's done. They're going back to RFK. I'm sure you can probably already put deposits down for season tickets for that place. It's not even open yet. It won't be open for 5 or so years. But I'm happy with it. I'm excited to go see a game there, in 5 or so years. And hopefully we'll have another Lombardi to put in the trophy case at that point, maybe one or two. So I'm excited for it. Can't wait for it. Also, we have some just since we haven't really talked about it, training camp's been going on past couple of weeks. Just some big notes, big sticking points, I suppose, over themes, I suppose, over the past couple of weeks. It's been said by coaches, it's been said by teammates, not that they would say anything different, really, but Jane Daniels appears more comfortable, in the huddle, during practice, in the film room. He's been more vocal, according to teammates and coaches. Austin Eckler came out with a comment the other day and said that he kicked a teammate out of the huddle because of a false start penalty, which I love hearing that kind of stuff when a quarterback says that. It's like, nah, get out of here. You're done. So I like hearing that. I enjoy that stuff. Um, but again, I don't know what else players are supposed to say about, a young quarterback. He's supposed to say, well, he's not really getting it this year. Like, what else are they supposed to say? But um, I letter of disclosure here. I don't take a lot from training camp. I don't take a lot from practice. This could be some of the biggest head fakes. This is the number one cause of Ashburn syndrome is seeing clips and highlights in training camp thinking that this guy is going to be the next Pro Bowler, he's going to be the next stalwart starter at his position, and it's such crap, man. It's not even a head fake sometimes. It's just not real. It's not real what you're seeing sometimes. So we have to I take it with many grains of salt, but it's still some of it is, I suppose, noteworthy, at least to monitor. Do you have any other thoughts about, practice training camp this time of year, just out of curiosity, or preseason in general?
I'll get to more of these specific names that you have here when we get to the depth chart here in just a couple of minutes. I'm with you. What comes out of training camp? What are these people supposed to say? You know, if you're the offensive coordinator, you're like, nah, this dude really sucks, man. We never should have drafted this guy. I don't know what we were thinking. What's our general manager thinking? Or if you're the head coach, you're like, man, nah, defense looks awful, man. I don't know what we're gonna do. Wish we'd have invested more free agent money on that side of the ball. You can't really trust anything any of these people are saying. Or, man, even I myself, going back to my Chiefs days, and Chiefs fans can relate. Seeing a guy light it up in exhibition games and seeing all the beat writers write up this guy, young guy, right? Said, oh boy, this guy's just lighting it up. He's going to make the team and everything. He don't even make first cuts, and you're like, well, I guess that really didn't mean a darn
Yeah.
thing. So I'm with you, but it's still interesting. And I'll grab one name right here, that Jalen Lane kid
Yep.
out of Virginia Tech. That would be one guy here that we won't touch on the depth chart. If you can get some production out of him this year, that kind of that fast, short game type stuff, a lot of that, that would be nice. So if that is true, that he's actually showing the ability to stay on the field for a lower draft pick, I would be excited about that.
Yeah, I would too. He's definitely going to be a punt returner. I don't really know that there's much competition involved with that. He's probably going to be punt returner, probably kick returner as well. Um, some other standouts, at least reportedly from camp, from local beat writers and stuff, even coaches saying, Trey Amos, rookie corner. That would be huge if that is real, if that is true. Um, Bill Merritt, but Ja'Cory Cross-Creek Merritt. I mean, he goes by Bill. It's just easier to put Bill Merritt. Look, if you want to be optimistic about a seventh round running back, Godspeed. All right. But let's not act like he's the next LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson. Even though it was a unique situation with him not have played in 2024 due to eligibility BS. If he was a good running back, then he's a good running back. He would have been taken a lot higher than the seventh round. Okay. I get it was a deep draft for running backs. I get all that. If he was that good, then he would not have been passed up 6.5 or so times. It just would not have happened. Okay. So I'm not saying he's going to be crap. I'm not saying he's going to be a horrible running back. I'm saying there is a solid chance that he doesn't make the final 53 because of the other depths we have at the position. He might not see the fields or the active roster until like week 7, 8, and it might just be due to injuries. Okay, that's a very realistic possibility. He could make the final 53. Not putting it past him, but I'm not getting hyped up over a seventh round running back. Jalen Lane, as you mentioned, then Tyler Owens. He was a undrafted safety last year that turned into a big special teams contributor. He's been they've been playing him all over the field on defense. As a kind of like that hybrid safety linebacker type as they've lined him up at nickel, covering some bigger tight ends. They've had him deep. They've had him playing all over the place. So I think they're just trying to see what they have in him. There's not much depth at safety, which we'll get to later, but he's been one of the quote unquote standouts of training camp. Again, I'm not putting stock into much of any of this. It's just noteworthy stuff.
Agreed. I'll talk about Trey Amos when we actually get to the secondary because I'm excited about that. I'll talk about Brandon Coleman and Sam Cosmi and Josh Connerly here in a second when we get to the depth chart. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I agree. A lot of interesting stuff going here and good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes, yes. So, Brandon Coleman, Quinn has called him out multiple times at this point. Him and Javante Jean-Baptiste, edge rusher, second year guy out of Notre Dame. He's called them out multiple times, saying he likes the progression that he's seen from them. Like he doesn't, they don't, reporters haven't asked about them specifically. They just ask, how are things going, and he calls them out. Um, Again, doesn't necessarily mean anything. I just think it's noteworthy that he's called out these two players specifically repeatedly. Brandon Coleman, obviously, a lot of expectation that he's going to lock down that left guard position and be your left guard for the next several years. He was drafted. He would play left tackle last year. He was projected more as a guard when he came out of college. I liked him at tackle. I would have liked to seen him get some more reps there, but they bring in Tunsil, they draft Connolly. Clearly, they think otherwise. Um, Cosme be on the final 53. I feel like that's a stretch, man. He had surgery in January and it's August. You're saying or even when we get to week 1 in September, you're telling me 8 months later he can play? I don't buy it. I would much rather see him start on the PUP list and spend 4 weeks, even if he is ready for, just say theoretically he's ready for week 1. I don't want him on I don't want even want him on the active roster. I want him saving for four weeks. Make sure for a fact that you're good to play. That when you hit that field, you're 110%. If you're not even close to that, I don't want you on the active roster. So that's blowing my mind. I'm happy that he's rehabbing so well. Like I'm thrilled with that. I don't want him on the active roster for until week 5. Um, Nate Herbig retired. That's a hit to the depth of the offensive line. And then Connerly, as we'll get to, we'll go ahead and get to the depth chart here. Um, Connerly, it says Wiley or Connerly. So to me, that means that he's going to get the Brandon Coleman treatment from last year, where he's going to be splitting time, as Coleman did with Cornelius Lucas last year at left tackle. That on the right side, it's going to be Wiley split with Connerly throughout the first several weeks of the season.
I agree, and there's a part of me that would be like, hey, I would love to see Connerly just start week 1 and let's let him take his lumps by playoff time. Hopefully he's ready and then he has a beautiful career. That's not always the best thing, especially when they're switching sides, like you mentioned before the show started. We were talking about that. When they're switching sides, they've got to get comfortable first and then they can start to show their talent. So until that happens, I'm fine with the soft launch. It's a blessing and a privilege that we here in Washington now have offensive line depth where we can say, hey, Cosme, take your time coming back. We can say, hey, Connerly, let's wait until you're actually ready to play this right tackle spot in full. So I mean, it's a really exciting spot to be, man. You've been in this spot for a very long time, so uh, it looks good though. When I look at the depth chart here and I see Tunsil left tackle, man, that's beautiful. I love that. Brendan Coleman, you're right. When Tunsil and Connerly showed up, Coleman's days at tackle are largely done, right? Barring injuries and musical chair treatment. So Brendan Coleman, hopefully pencil him in as left guard for the next 8 years, right? That would be awesome. I'd love that. Biotish as your center, no surprise there. So the left side of the line looks like it's locked and loaded, ready to go. Man, you got 4 different people in play for the right side. That's not a surprise, but boy, I'm satisfied with what we're doing over the right side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And things to note here, for all you Bill Merritt fans here, he is the fifth running back on the depth chart. So yeah, he's really making some strong strides to make that week 1 roster. He's not even ahead of Chris Rodriguez, which I really liked Chris Rodriguez. Um, Again, not saying that Chris Rodriguez is going to do anything either, but I liked his running style. I liked the opportunities. Anytime he got an opportunity, he seemed to take advantage of it. Coaching staff still see something there. He also plays special teams, which I don't know that Bill Merritt does. We'll see, but that's not nothing. If you're able to play special teams and we're looking at the bottom of the roster, coaching staff's going to take that into consideration for sure. Um, Anything else of note that you see on the unofficial first depth chart? Anything you want to point out?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. About the secondary stuff, I will wait and say. Trey Amos thing, I think, is big.
Yes.
You mentioned John Baptiste. Man, he's down there on the depth chart as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
he is.
fine. It's fine for the coaches to shout these guys out and say, "Hey, Mel, boy, they've improved. That's great." Or they're putting out max effort every play. Boy, that's great. I love it. But still, man, that doesn't mean that they're going to show up for major playing time during the season. It just that's not the same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so agree there. I did notice on the depth chart here for the defensive line. Lots of rotational guys again. It's the defensive tackles we thought, Payne and Kinlaw. We said that a couple of weeks ago. We thought that would be the case. And then Wise and Armstrong kind of stepping in as your regular base guys. Jerzon Newton sitting there at the second level, man. So we're hoping he can push through, but if not, he's good rotation. And then Von Miller as kind of the edge linebacker slash guy there. So it's not too many surprises here, but the surprises we got, I think, were good ones.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Jean Baptiste goes, you can't beat out Clellan Ferrell and Jalen Holmes. I mean, I know they're veterans, but I mean,
Right,
if you're playing
right.
so well, then why aren't you beating those guys out? And hey, maybe preseason will change that. Who knows? But um, I'm not super surprised about anything. The one sticking point I will have is that Trey Amos is starting ahead of Jonathan Jones. I really thought that starting out, again, it would be similar to the tackle situation where you'd be having Jonathan Jones start outside or having, Jonathan Jones starting at a position, whether that's inside or outside. And then you just mix in Amos and see how he does here and there. And that still might be the plan. Who knows? But the fact that the first depth chart that's released, Trey Amos is at the top of it, I I feel like that is indicative of at least something. Um, Oddly enough, I said that Jalen Lane was going to be the punt returner for sure, and he's not. So maybe they're trying to kick him into gear. I don't know. I don't know that KJ Osborne is going to be your punt returner. I don't even know that he's going to make the final 53, but just also something to note there as well. Anything else on the depth chart?
Yeah, we'll talk more about Trey Amos, but it is a big deal. They can talk Trey Amos up all they want from the coaching standpoint, but when you do see him on the first official depth chart listed as one of the three cornerbacks, that's something. That means something. That's really a stamp of, hey, we've already got you ahead of NFL level cornerbacks. Guys we're paying too. Jonathan Jones is sitting back there at the number two spot. We'll get to that money side later, but they're paying him legit money to be there.
Yeah.
And Trey Amos has already basically taken that spot. And again, I I'm sure people are yelling at me. I get it. Lots of rotational guys here. Lots of hey, it depends on what package we're in, or it depends on is it a big wide receiver that day we're trying to cover, or a small one? I got all that. We're going to get all that, but still, first official depth chart, Trey Amos is listed as one of the top three, not Jonathan Jones. That is a big deal.
All right. First, before we get into the secondary, Ben, you'll want to shout out a couple of these amazing podcasts that we have in regards to Box Score Network.
Yeah, they're all amazing, of course. Let me shout out to Because CONCACAF. That's the one you see on the upper right hand of my screen anyway. Soccer podcast does a great job. Andy and I've missed the other name. I'm sorry, but they do a great job with it. And they cover everything, man. They cover everything. All right, especially a lot of United States soccer. I've noticed in listening to them, they'll cover a lot of just United States going overseas and playing. So a lot of that, but then they're right back into all the leagues again too. So all the leagues that you love, a lot of soccer stuff there. So really, really good stuff there. And then Simon and Friends, you mentioned it on our podcast. We haven't mentioned on our YouTube show. Did what we thought they would do, covered the Fantastic Four. I still haven't seen it. My son's dying to see it. So when it streams out, we are going to watch it. But they covered that in a preview after having watched it on Simon and Friends. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Fantastic Four and you don't want a spoiler, don't listen to Simon and Friends. But whenever you're ready, go check that out.
So I did want to shout out our own podcast real quick. We did, me and Ben, when we've done odds on favorite, we typically do some sort of international type thing, a play on the international landscape that the NFL has found themselves in and how they keep trying to expand and so forth, what that means for, you know, immediately for the NFL and what that means for the future of just football in general. Whether that's NFL football or an international league popping up, or if there's going to be international teams eventually. We've covered that for years, and we did the same last week. Interesting thing about that is at the end of the episode, Ben Ben typically at the end of our podcast episodes has some sort of wacky, fun segment at the end of it, and at the end of our show last week, the International Series show, he was talk. We were talking about cereal box prizes and what they have been over the years, and some of the more popular ones and so forth. And then two peas in a pod, Peyton and gosh, we're terrible with names tonight. I can't.
we're we're
Goodness
really kicking the
gracious.
ball.
They're gonna
What's
kill me
your
if they
name,
hear this.
man?
I don't even know what the heck my. I'll be honest with you. People at work have been getting my name wrong. It's been pissing me off lately, but that's beside the point. Anyways, Peyton and I. Good God, I can't remember his
Parker.
name.
Yep.
Parker. Yes, Peyton and Parker. Yes, thank you. They also kind of commented when they were shouting our show out. They had their own little banter back and forth about the cereal box prizes that they had when they were growing up. So I thought that was a fun little banter back and forth. Had their own little segment there of that. So I thought that was fun. I just wanted to shout them out there real quick.
Yeah. Agreed. The show we did last week, Odds on Favor, Apple, Spotify, it's a podcast.
Yes, please.
That's a really good show. Not just the cereal box thing, because that's a lot of fun, but the international thing. Listen, I get it. Not everybody even cares about the international games. Not everybody even wants to watch the 9:30s, game. Right? I get that. But if you are interested in the international stuff, we didn't just cover the games. We did. We covered every single game, but we also spent a good bit of time talking about what the NFL's doing over there. Right? I mean, lot of good in-depth conversation we had on that, and this isn't the first time we've done it. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, so please go over and check that out if you are at all interested on the international side of what the NFL is up to.
All right, Ben. We ready to talk secondary?
I am so ready, man. Okay. Let's throw caution to the wind, man. I'm not cautiously optimistic. I'm heck yeah optimistic about this secondary. Okay.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, probably
Cor-
not.
correct me if I'm wrong. You specifically have been ready for this specific episode for what, a month, two
Yeah,
months
something
now?
like that. Yes.
Because due to a miscommunication on my part, we were about a month or 2 months ago, we were supposed to cover the secondary, and I believe I had prepared for a totally different position group.
Right.
And you were like, "Hey, so secondary tonight, right?" And I'm like,
No.
no." I was like, oops. So of course that was my fault. So Ben's been ready for this. He's been holding out on his thoughts on this Washington Commander secondary for months at this point. So finally, we get to talk about cornerback position. Here we have listed here. I have who's on the roster right now in terms of the bigger name players. Of course, there's tons of rookies and undrafted guys on this roster, but these are the big name guys at the position right now. Have their cap hits listed there as well. Again, Marshawn Lattimore is the big contract. He's the big acquisition. He was brought in last year, traded from New Orleans. Uh, not a great, very up and down in the limited time he was on the field last year. Largely ineffective, more of a liability at times, unfortunately, especially during the playoffs. Not the Detroit game though, surprisingly. No one talks about that. He didn't allow a single reception in the Detroit game, but that's beside the point. Trey Amos, again, we've talked about him a lot tonight. Second round pick out of Ole Miss. Mikey Sanders still had a great second half of his rookie season. Um, hopefully, I think personally that Mikey Sanders still probably by the end of the year is going to cement himself as the best corner on this team. I really believe that. Even if Marshawn Lattimore has a good year, I truly believe that Mikey Sanders still is that guy that can cement himself as the best, as the leader in this secondary. I think he has that kind of stuff. I think he has that kind of leadership ability. Jonathan Jones, we mentioned earlier, him coming over from New England. I think he was in New England for like 8 or so years. Um, Again, I thought he was going to start out at corner, whether that was inside or outside, and Sanders still will get the other spot. But team likes to really like seems to really like Trey Amos right now, so it seems at the moment that he'll be the starter going forward. And then Noah Igbenogany. Sorry if I spelled his name wrong. I think I did, but my apologies there. Uh, he was fine last year in the slot. Made some plays at times. He wasn't bad. Wasn't great. He was just solid, average. Uh, so they brought him back. I was glad they brought him back. Just more depth, especially in that slot position. And he does have talent. He's a former first round pick, so he has a lot of talent. Just I'm glad that there's more depth here. And again, we look back a year ago on what this was a year ago to now. It is a night and day difference. I'm hoping that with these young guys and with the leadership of Lattimore and Jones, that this group can just be one of the strengths of the team now, as opposed to you wince every time the opposing quarterback drops back because one, not much of pass rush, especially this year, and two, at least last year, a very weak secondary. So, your thoughts on the group and how you feel about them?
I'll start with the money side, then I'll hit a negative thing, which isn't even their fault, and then we'll get deeper into it because I got a bunch of good thoughts here, man. A bunch of positive ones. Okay. First of all, money wise, you're paying, I don't know, $32 million for the group, right? That's the cap number for this season. That's really nothing, man. We're looking at seven guys here, six, eight, seven, eight guys. That's nothing. Lattimore's obviously the big one at 18. That's a pretty fair cap number for a veteran cornerback getting a larger free agent deal, which he did. That's a fine price. Jonathan Jones, you might be paying him $5.5 million to get 500 snaps this year. Might be the way it works out, but who cares? Overall cap number wise this year, you're not paying a quarterback a whole heck of a lot of money. You're not paying some of these other guys a whole heck of a lot of money yet. You're fine. So, but to be able to have this defensive back group for the price tag of $32 million, that's a really good deal. All right, that's getting the most out of it. So I really like that. The negative thing is this group is going to get more stress than it should and may not get to show how good it really is if there isn't much of a pass rush. Now, bringing Von Miller on board for the Commanders this year, maybe that helps. Sure, it does, especially on those passing downs, right? Those third and sixes, third and sevens. That will help. Still, though, I'm not sure. Barring somebody stepping up on the front four, front seven, I'm not sure they're going to get their fair shake here, right? They may be asked to do more in pass protection than what you would really want them to have to do. But I really do like this group. We'll get more to that part of it in just a second. Maybe don't judge the secondary completely this year,
Yeah.
unless they're getting a good pass rush out of that front four, because it's not quite fair, to be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, look, the best secondaries in the NFL get torched. Okay. Um, you look at the Eagles secondary last year and you say, wow, I mean that was a great group last year, right? When they played us that second time, granted Jalen Hurts was out, but you look at them, you know, they gave up 5 touchdown passes to Jane Daniels. They picked them off twice, sure, but they gave up 5 touchdown passes. So even the elite secondaries are going to get torched. Okay, at some point, whether it's one quarter, whether it's one drive, whether it's a game or a stretch of games, the NFL is they're going to promote the offense. The rules are tilted towards the offense. The great secondaries are going to have bad games. Okay. That's just reality of the situation. You could have a good pass rush to go with it. I mean, look at Philadelphia's pass rush. They had fantastic pass rush and fantastic secondary, and they still gave up 40 some points, I think. Um, it's they're gonna have some rough times this year. You have a guy like Trey Amos, who's again, he very positive things out of camp, but he's still gonna be a rookie. Mikey Sanders still beginning of last year. I mean, he made some plays, but he wasn't perfect. He gave up a lot of stuff. And I still kind of expect the same thing from him this year. I expect him to take a giant leap forward, but that doesn't mean he's not going to give up anything, right? I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, he could have a big bounce back season. He's still gonna give up some stuff. It's gonna happen, right? There's no way around it. Okay. Um, they're five deep, right? You got Lattimore, Amos, Sanders, Still, Jones, and Noah I. To me, you're five deep. You have depth here. You have starter level play. You have five starting level players here. You can debate that with no I, but you at least have four, possibly five starting level uh corners here. That's huge. Um, I would argue and say that Sandra still is better. I know he projects as a slot corner. I would dare say that based on last year, that he's going to long term be a better outside corner. Now, size is an issue here. He's a small guy, but didn't seem to stop him last year. He covered AJ Brown like nobody else could on our team. I mean, he was the best option to throw at him. He's the was the shortest guy on our team. So it didn't seem to impede him at that point. I mean, obviously, just size and physics kind of gets in the way of that, but I kind of think that, if he starts struggling the slot a bit and, maybe you can shuffle some things around that maybe he can just be in a rotation with Amos and Lattimore to just be an outside corner. I think that I would feel better about that because I feel like outside corners are just so hard to find that if he's good at it, why take him away from that?
I'm going to use an old word here from Major League Baseball. It's called the word platoon. And I do feel like there can be a lot of platooning with this year's secondary. And I like this secondary. By the way, it's not a top 10 secondary. I'm not expecting that. But I do feel like this can be a quality, and you mentioned maybe even strength of the team. I do feel like it has that in it. But I do feel like rotational work and platoon, but not because these guys don't have talent. That is not the thing. I look at the defensive line and I think, well, man, some of those guys just don't have a whole heck of a lot of talent, so they're rotating. That's why they're rotating in and out. Not with the secondary. I think they're rotating based on their strengths. I think we're going to see more of that. For instance, I'll start with Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore, I thought, played really good at times last year, but his biggest struggles were not against fast receivers, it was against big receivers. We saw him have two games where he just really struggled against two of the better, bigger receivers in the game. Well, enter Trey Amos, who is what, 6'1", and has a lot of good girth to him, weight to him. I would look forward to the idea that Trey Amos, who by the way, first official depth chart is one of the top three listed. I would love the idea that Trey Amos gets the assignment of, hey, one-on-one physical cover some of these bigger receivers. Not every snap. He's not going to be on the field 1,000 snaps, but that's a lot of his assignment, right? It's just, hey, you take it where Lattimore's struggling. Lattimore moves to the other side. And then when you get back to some of the more just good receivers with the speed, Lattimore stays on them. Amos comes off the field, and Mike Sainristil takes over that big cover corner role, right? That's because you mentioned that he looked better at that than he did at slot. And that's not a problem because you mentioned we've got Jonathan Jones and Igbenogany sitting right there, both of whom can do slot work, right? And then if there's an injury, which, fingers crossed there's not, but Jonathan Jones can play almost anywhere, so you can move him around as needed. So I really think that's what we're looking at here is good matchups. Lattimore's going to get the most snaps out of anybody, I'm sure. If Amos is looking well as the season progresses, maybe he gets more, but Sanders still should be on the field a lot. And just to get you a peek into where my mind might be as a general manager, I don't know if Adam Peters is thinking this way or not. I can't pay everybody, okay? I can't do
Hmm.
it. So if I get one good year out of Lattimore, I got a half season last year. If I get one good year out of Lattimore this year, we make a run at the playoffs, I'm not paying him next year. He's got one more year on his contract, 2026. If he wants a contract extension, I'm probably not going to give it to him. I'm probably just going to trade him away. But what would help me do that is if Trey Amos is holding down one outside corner spot and Mike Sanders still is holding down the other, and I've got all
Yeah.
kinds of things I can do at slot. So I like this setup, not only for this year, but for next year too, potentially.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredibly good point because again, you can't pay everybody. And if Lattimore has, a bounce back season in a big way, just say he's a Pro Bowl caliber type receiver. He
Yeah,
has a couple picks, maybe even a pick six in there, and he's heading off this defense that's maybe not top 10, but maybe just say it's, very optimistic. It's top half of the league unit, right? And he's just locking down receivers week after week, right? He's gonna want paid. He's gonna want a raise and he's going to want paid because he's not getting any younger. He'll either be 30 or he'll be, over 30 after this season.
right.
And he's going to look for his last big payout. And with 1 year left with no guaranteed money. I mean, we will see. I don't know if he's a team player. It's like, hey, just guarantee my contract and then, I'll play out the rest of my last year. I don't know. I doubt it because that would be his last big payday. But I know for a fact, and, kind of same situation that Terry's in right now. I know that we're not going to do that. Unless Amos is just really not working out or Sanders still big injury or something like that. That's not going to happen. Um, so I like the thought process behind that. Again, I don't care where these guys play. I don't care if it's outside slot. I don't care where they are. I just want them to say like, hey, this is your strength, so we're gonna play you there. Okay. I don't want them to say Sanders still, you're a small guy. You're more of a slot guy. If his strength's outside, play him outside. I don't care who else is on the roster. I don't care, what else is needed. You got other slot guys on the roster with Jonathan Jones and Noah I. Make it work. Okay. I don't care how it needs to happen. Just make it work. If Amos, you try to find out that he's, not as great outside, but he might be better inside, which I don't think is the case, but just throwing it out there, then do that. Just fit them where their strengths are. I don't want you to, because there's some coaches and some GMs like, oh, he's this guy. He can only play there. I don't want that. Not saying that these guys are. I'm not even saying that that's the case, but I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just to look at it from a snaps perspective, because that always helps. Snaps help determine who's really getting, who's really deserving of being on the field the most. That's Lattimore. Lattimore is the guy who's going to be on the field a lot. Probably not 1,200 snaps, probably a good 1,000 snaps. If he's healthy, is what he's going to get. He's going to be out there on the field a lot. Whether they put him on a big one or a big receiver or the fast on the other side, he's going to be out there a lot. Sanders still, to me, would be the guy I would want opposite Lattimore on the downs that really matter, especially early in the season. So on these gotta have it downs, let's keep the rookie on the bench for the first part of the season for those gotta have it downs. Sanders still is the guy that's going to get a lot more of the snaps. So I feel like by end of season, Sanders still is probably sitting up there around 800 snaps, maybe even a good deal more than that, depending on how good he looks. Amos is the guy that, if he's looking good against those bigger receivers, that he'll get more and more of that playing time. But still, I figure he's probably good for 500-600 snaps. Probably not going to get the whole full start, even though he's listed that as one of the three guys on the depth chart. But you got three outside guys and three inside guys, right? Because who can play inside? Well, that's Sanders, Steele, Jones, and Igbenogany. Sorry about the name. Who can play outside? Lattimore, Amos, and Jones, and Sanders still. So you got outside and inside guys. That's not a problem. You've got depth. That's not a problem. It's just a matter of where they're going to play, and I think some of that's going to come down to situational football. And I do think Jones, Igbenogany, and even Amos and Sanders still to a degree, they're going to get rotated in and out a lot depending on what the team needs. So I like it. I really do like this setup.
Something I don't like is the safeties.
Yeah.
I look, there are many fans that love Quan Martin. Um, I like him. I don't know that I love him as, deep free safety. I don't know that he is a top half of the league starting safety. Um, I could get proven wrong. He was a playmaker at times last year. I won't doubt that, but is he that, you know, that guy that quarterbacks fear or offensive coordinators would be like, hey, we need to watch out for this guy. I don't know that he's that guy. Okay. Um, I hope I'm wrong, of course. But I just don't see him as that guy. I see him as he's an okay safety. I've said before, like an elite defense, he's more of that third safety type role or nickel, nickel defender. Um, that's what I see him as. Again, I hope I'm proven wrong, but again, that's just how I see it. Again, I know he had some big plays, especially late last year. He had some big plays in the playoffs. I'm not doubting that for a second, but just overall, I'd like to see more out of him. Will Harris, I've already voiced my concerns about him. hasn't started, hasn't been a full-time starter, I don't think at all in his career. He's been in the league for 4 or 5 years. Not a great sign that you're just thrusting him into the starting role and we're expecting we're this is my problem with this position group. Okay. We as Commander fans have seen bad safety play. We've seen it for probably 10, 12, 15 years, right? Ever since, Sean T and Laurent Landry, ever since those days, safety play has not been good, like consistently good for a long time. I still feel more the same here. Quan Martin might be steady, but Will Harris, big question mark. Percy Butler, I'm sorry, dude. I don't want you on the field, even as a third safety. I've seen enough. Again, serviceable maybe, but I don't see him as a net positive. I don't see him as a massive liability either, but I've seen enough. I've had my fill of Percy Butler. Great special teams guy. No doubt about that. But on the field as a safety, I'm not a fan. Okay. Jeremy Reeves, again, love him. Love Jeremy Reeves. Most fans do, right? All pro Revo, right? All pro special teamer, great special teams guy. Him and Trustway, they're like best friends. Uh, Trustway's son, his favorite player is Jeremy Reeves, so I think that's kind of hilarious. But um, again, not a safety you want on the field. You don't want him on the field on defense, okay? And then Tyler Owens, again, they're trying him out at several different spots, in the secondary. Try him in nickel, try him as deep safety, trying him in the box, trying to see what they have in this guy. But again, based on last year, just a special teams guy. Okay, so you have three special team aces at safety, and then you have two. I would say one. He's steady. Quan Martin is steady, but again, I wouldn't say a massive playmaker on the defense side of the football yet. And then Will Harris, that to me is a question mark because he hasn't started for an extended period of time, for a full season in his career. That to me, that's concerning. Um, I would love if next offseason they could address this. I don't know that there's anyone available right now that they can address this with, but I would love for this position to be addressed and made final for a while, at least for a couple years. Lock these two positions down.
I almost and you and I don't always agree, and that's fine. But I almost 1,000% agree with everything you just put out there about the safety group. I see it. I see it the same way. I feel the same things. I mean, exactly. I'll start with Quan Martin. I do like him, but I don't love him, and I don't think I'm ever going to. I think we've kind of sort of seen what he is. Will Harris, I'm okay with him being on the field and getting snaps, but boy, I'm not excited about that. So with Martin and Harris together, I've got two guys who are going to struggle, especially when it comes to the passing side of things. I don't doubt that they'll bring energy and they can drop in the box and help run support and they'll make some big plays. I don't doubt any of that. I really struggle to see how they're going to help in the passing game, and I think they're more liability than they are anything, especially Harris. You're right about Butler, Reeves. Man, I just don't want them on the field very much. And Butler, he ended up getting what, almost 500 snaps last year when
Yeah.
he was playing.
He was
That's a
he was on the
lot.
field a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot. I don't want that. So here, my idea is this, and it really is to borrow from the depth that you have at cornerback. So I have two ideas on this. One I think probably will happen. One probably won't. Quan Martin is solid and reliable as a safety, but he's better at dropping down in the box, supporting run, and making bigger plays. I don't really like him as free safety. Come to passing downs, why not take either Martin or Harris off the field and put Mike Sainristil back there? Let him do that. He's got the athleticism. Now, the problem with that is Sainristil's still very young. He's still got a lot of things to learn. So I'm not sure I want that going on. What I could do, though, is Jonathan Jones, who has played here and there some free safety over the years. Not a lot. He's mainly a corner. But you talk about a guy who's experienced, a guy who has seen it all, and a guy who can. This is the key. This is the key to it. A guy who can help in the passing game. He stands back there and he's not there for run support. He's helping out in pass coverage. So to me on passing downs, I don't know that you don't just drop. Let's leave Quan Martin on the field. Let's drop Harris out. Let's put Jonathan Jones back there as free safety help. And, we've still got corners we like. Lattimore's out there. Amos is out there. Sanders still is out there. So I would do that because I'm just not excited about this safety group in any way. Quan Martin would probably look a whole lot better if we put a good safety beside him, but he's not going to have that. So, why don't we do something a little bit more creative? I would like that. And you're right. I would love to see them upgrade this position next year. Let's do something to upgrade here at safety.
Well, Quan Martin was originally drafted as a corner. Now, granted, it was the old group, so I don't put much into that.
Right,
He was drafted as a nickel. He could play outside, but he never really did. He was more
right.
of a nickel corner, and then he transitioned to safety. Look. I mean, again, I've said that I'm not impressed with him. I'm not super impressed. I think he's a steady guy. I think he can make plays. He did last year. He came up with a couple of picks. Came up with a huge pick six in the Detroit Detroit game. But you pair him. I mean, to me, again, he like you said, Jeremy Chin. I mean, he had a heck of a year last year, so that made Quan Martin look
Yeah,
better. You know,
yeah.
you have a guy like Will Harris there. Now you're really seeing the deficiency here. Maybe we're wrong about Will Harris. Maybe he's meant to start. Maybe he's going to make an impact. If it's if it's similar to Jeremy Chin, sure, but I don't think I can expect that from him. He hasn't started full time. And if your plan going into this is to rotate Harris and Butler constantly, well, that happened last year on passing downs when you rotated Butler in for Jeremy Chin. So if you're gonna do that again with Will Harris, I don't know how that's an improvement. I think it's a downgrade from Chin to Harris. I don't think that's much of a question, in my opinion. There can be people that tell you otherwise. I would state facts that would prove you otherwise that this guy can't start, or hasn't started at least. Um, Again, I don't know who's out there that you could get, but I would love to see if they could bring in any help. I mean, any help would be great at this position. As far as the idea to bring Jonathan Jones back there, look, I'd be fine if he played deep safety and you had Quan Martin. If they're just playing prevent, having both of them back there and maybe have all Amos, Sanders still, and Lattimore on at the same time. You just have your best guys out there, your best cover guys out there. I'd be fine with that, sure. Do I really want him playing significant snaps at safety? I wouldn't, just because of his age, and I would doubt that his ability to close gaps, on deep passes, and I would doubt that at this age because he is in his 30s, I believe. He's 8, 9 year vet. So I don't want a guy that's old and slow back playing deep safety a ton. I can understand it in some situations, but again, I don't want him playing significant snaps at free safety. Not a bad idea. Better than what you have currently at the position, but again, not none of this is ideal. Um, so I'm not opposed to the idea. I would just like to see what he has in terms of speed, if he still has some of that to kind of some of that makeup speed. If he still has that, then yeah, I'd be more on board with it. Other than that, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not for it either.
You're right about one thing. Nothing here is ideal. But I look at Will Harris. I mean, honestly, I just see a guy who was brought in for depth. I really didn't like the idea that this was going to be one of my two starting safeties getting 800 to 1,000 snaps this year. That's not what I was hoping for. I realize that there's a very good chance that is what's going to happen. But once again, don't be surprised. Just don't be surprised if Dan Quinn isn't getting creative from a scheme standpoint, and then don't be surprised if we don't see a lot of rotational and situational football here at safety too. Um, I just I am just not buying the idea that Will Harris and Quan Martin are going to sit back there at safety and try to play pass coverage. That's going to be a disaster. So, if you're going to tell me these guys are going to drop in the box and start getting after the quarterback a little bit, or they're going to pick up the slot corner while the slot corner blitzes, I'm in for some of that. But if the game plan is to have these two guys sit back there at safety and pass protect, you know, you're gonna struggle. Now you're asking this cornerback group, which we do like, right? You're asking them to deal with safeties that aren't great, and a defensive front line that's really not great at getting the quarterback either. That's a boy. You're getting hurt on both sides by. You're drawing a lot of friendly fire. Here's what's happening if you're quarterback. So don't be surprised if you don't see something like Jonathan Jones or Sanders Steele, either from an athletic. Because again, I wish I could put them together, but I can't. You're right. Jonathan Jones isn't going to have the closing speed. He's not going to have the athleticism that Sanders Steele has, but Sanders Steele is not going to have the experience that Jonathan Jones has. Don't be surprised if you don't see some mix there of those two guys kicking back there at safety as the season goes along. It won't be for a lot, but I would be shocked if we don't see a good bit of that.
Now, the two wild cards here I don't have listed here. The team is considering Dominique Hampton as a safety. I put him in our linebacker in our front seven episode because he's been this bigger, you know, he's not super fast. He's definitely
Yeah,
an in the box safety that's probably going to be used more as a linebacker type player, one of these hybrid guys, than he is going to be as a deep safety. Okay, I'm not saying he's not fast or athletic, but he's not as athletic as some of these other guys, right?
right.
Um, Even though he tested well, like still, if he was that, then he would have seen the field more. So he is potentially an option as strong safety as opposed to Will Harris, I suppose. And then the rookie Kane Madrano. He was drafted as a linebacker. He's listed as a linebacker on the depth chart. To me, his skill set, based on my very limited viewing of his tape, of his measurables, he translates more to box, excuse me, box safety than he does linebacker. The size is not there to play. If you're 6'2" and 220, 230, you're not playing linebacker, my guy. You're not playing linebacker. You are playing box safety. And he ran a 4.4 too, so there is speed there. Um, I think he could, cover some tight ends, some running backs out of the backfield. That's why I'm saying more box safety, like not you don't want him shooting gaps, where a linebacker is supposed to, where Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louver are supposed to be, okay? Um, I think he could transition more to safety and play that role better than a linebacker at the NFL level. Again, he's listed as a linebacker. I think he's still a wild card at safety. Not saying he's the solution. I'm not saying him and Hampton are the solution at all, but it is a potential option available, especially since the current options available are not at all inspiring.
I agree. Actually, I think that's a great point because we can all agree as Commanders fans who love our team and we're excited about this season and there's a lot to like. We still got some problems, and there's different ways of addressing that. We trust Dan Quinn's going to scheme it up great this year. We believe that. We like the depth at corner. It almost feels like we got too many corners, right? So I'm in favor of talent wise, letting some of that spill over into the safety room. But you're mentioning it here. This is more of the mix and match stuff. You've got these body types here, right? They're not going to play a lot of snaps. But between Madrano and Hampton, and I'll even go back and grab Tyler Owens here, who you do have on the board, and you mentioned as well, you've got those bigger body types that you're right, whether you drop them into the box or whether you sit them back there on the tight end and say, hey, just dog that guy right there, just harass him, or whether you sit them back there and let them play forward and try to make some big plays. They're going to get their chance here. And even if one guy, man, could show up for 200, 250 snaps, it would be a help, right? It would help. It's like, hey, you can do this thing 200 times this year. That would help us out, right? That's 200 snaps that Will Harris isn't on the field, bless his heart, or that Butler's not on the field, right? That would all help. So, man, if they can get something on one of these guys, I do like the idea that they brought in these bigger body types. They did the same thing with Trey Amos at corner, right? You're bringing in bigger body types and trying them out. You don't want to not have fast guys, but you got some fast guys. Bringing in some bigger body types to help with that too. So it's more of that mixing and matching idea, man. I mean, every down, one down to the next, boy, the personnel is going to be wild, man. I really
Yeah,
believe that.
yeah,
Defensive line, the only position that personnel is not going to be wild at is linebacker, okay? Because you got two of them, right?
yeah, yeah,
Everywhere
yeah,
else, it's going to be mix and match and rotate. And boy, you got that guy because you're big, and you got that guy because you're fast, and you're playing this spot because we need a little bit of a edge rush on this particular play. I mean, that's what it's going to be this year for the Commanders, and maybe they can make something come of that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Look, I don't. I like that they have young guys that are athletic, that are the bigger body types that can play in the box, right? But at the end of the day, you have confident. I say confidently with air quotes here. You have confidently one deep safety. Okay, if Quan Martin were to get injured and miss a significant amount of
Right,
time, who is going to
right.
step in? If you have Percy
Jonathan
Butler,
Jones.
it would have to
I'm
be, I
telling you,
guess.
yes,
But you know, for the most part last year, we avoided the injury bug, right? I mean, we had some injuries here and there,
yes.
um, but nothing super major, nothing that was, we have to alter our plans completely. I don't want to say that's coming because I don't want that to happen and I don't want to jinx anybody, but you start looking at your depth, and yes, it's that corner. It's definitely not at all at safety. And if you lose an edge rusher, then you're going to be pulling guys off the street, you know, or you're going to be calling up some undrafted free agents. So depth is a and linebacker. Forget that. You don't have any linebackers on the roster. You got you got Bobby Wagner. That's your only inside linebacker, and a fifth round pick from last year, and Jordan McGee, who again the coaches seem to love. That doesn't mean that he's going to play well, right? We haven't seen him on the field. So there is some massive question marks in terms of depth on this defense. And unfortunately, with the defensive line, with starters, there's questions about these starters. Um, I'm, I'd like to be reasonably optimistic about this defense and think that okay, some of these guys they got a full off season. They're in some of these guys are in their second year in this system. Maybe they'll take a step forward. Guys like Johnny Newton, guys like Deron Payne, that he doesn't have John Allen, kind of in the shadow there, I suppose, but I think that's a BS argument. Now that Lattimore has a healthy offseason, maybe these guys can start meshing together. Maybe they can start stepping up, right? But it's hard to be optimistic about this defense given the lack of depth in every area other than corner, and then just the question marks in terms of starters at pretty much every position. What can Dorrance Armstrong and Dietrich Wise do as starters? Can Deron Payne have a bounce back year? Is Johnny Newton ready to take on a starting role? Is Javon Kinlaw ready to take on a starting role? Is Marshawn Lattimore going to get back to where he was? Can Trey Amos be an impactful rookie as a starter? Is Quan Martin and Will Harris going to be good? Is that pairing going to be good? There's question marks on this defense all over the place, up and down, starter to bottom end of the roster. I don't feel great about it. I see this realistically ending up kind of where we were last year, where we're just struggling through it all and hoping that we can score 30 to 40 points a game to stay in games and to win games. That's where I see optimistically, if some of these things do work out, I see us making minor improvements and being in that conversation as a top half of the league defense. Um, but a lot of things have to happen for that to become a reality.
I agree with all of that. That's not us trying to be pessimistic or optimistic. That's just us trying to, take a realistic look at this. And hey, y'all won a lot of games last year. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot, So who's to say we can't do it again? Nothing, we can do it again. Um, you mentioned it. Pull somebody off the street. Let me trot out a couple of names here. They're not ideal. I have no clue what their injury situation is. Okay, they may not be ready to do anything else. But here's a couple of names, and keep in mind that Will Harris currently is our starting safety, so that's the measuring board, right? Would one of these
Right.
guys be able to step in ahead of Will? Marcus Williams still available right now out there.
Mm.
He's almost 29 years old, so the age isn't a big deal, but I don't know the injury current, where he's at on the injury board, right? Justin Simmons, who's about 31 and a half years old right now. He's out there. Both these guys are free safeties, okay? So, again, I would love the idea of, picking up the phone and working out these guys and just seeing what they look like because I know for a fact at some point in their careers, they have looked a whole heck of a lot better than either safety we've got trotting out there right now. I just don't know what shape they're in right now. That's the question. I don't know. Just a couple of Von Bell, again, who's 30 and a half. He didn't look great last year. But again, you talk about an experienced guy back there at safety. he's going to have all that closing speed trouble for sure. And he's really more of the strong safety type. But still, I've got an experienced guy back there. I'd be picking up the phone and working these guys out and at least seeing what they got because I'm not thrilled with safety right now. I'm not thrilled with the defensive line either, but I kind of done all I can do for defensive line, to be honest, especially once I brought in Von Miller. At safety, I still kind of sort of feel like I might can do more, even if they're not starting their depth.
I will say this in their defense. Last year going into it, we were reasonably excited about Jeremy Chin. It's like, okay, he can play well. We've seen him play well at a
Yeah,
starting level, but largely his career at that point going into last season was largely a disappointment. He had a great rookie year and then just kind of steadily declined throughout. But then last year, I mean, he just came on the scene and kind of exploded. I'm not saying he was an all-pro safety, but he was a very serviceable, very effective, at times a massive playmaker
right.
for this defense. So I think before they consider making a move like that with Will Harris, they're going to give him probably 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks to just see if he can mesh with the secondary, mesh with the defense. Unfortunately, by that time might be too late. There could be enough blown coverages and so forth that it might not matter at that point. But if you I don't think they're going to make that type of move immediately. I think they're going to give it some time to breathe, to let it mesh, um, until they make a move like that. And by that time, unfortunately, some of those players might not be available. Um, but given the track record, very limited track record we have with this group, I think they're going to try to let this thing ride itself out, let it work itself out, and see who can step up in the preseason, in the first couple weeks of the season, and see what mix is the right one.
I think you're right. This felt like, because you and I talked about maybe a month ago, it really felt like the Commanders had one more move in them,
Yeah.
and the Von Miller move was that move. Now, having said that, that happened pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised before the trade deadline if they don't explore whatever position they're thinking they could get, for not too expensive, right? Whether that is safety or whether it is somebody who can bring some pressure off the edge. Either one of those two spots, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they don't explore a trade. Again, we're not talking first round draft picks here, but hey, you give up a third round pick for a guy that's not going to cost you a lot of money. He comes in and plays for the rest of the season. He just helps you there. I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't come before the trade deadline, which is many weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with, here, I'll give you this player and a fifth if you give me a fourth back.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
here's this, he's a decent safety. He's got another year left on his contract, and here's a couple of sixth and seventh round picks or something like that, and give me back a third or a fourth, or a fifth or something like that to where there's some sort of pick exchange there, and then you get the player on top of that who maybe not be an elite guy, but he's definitely going to benefit your secondary. I'd be totally fine with that. I'd be, and as a matter of fact, in favor of that. Um, especially if you can trade like, probably like a fourth or a fifth for a couple of sixth or seventh round picks, I'd be fine with that. Um, because we need picks, but I'm not that focused on it right now. Um, just in principle, you know, acquiring a safety via trade or via free agency, I'm all in favor for. I'm never going to knock a team for adding depth, even if it's veteran depth. And we're turning to the over the hill gang from the '70s with George Allen, because this team's old. It's old, man. But yeah, I'd like to be optimistic, but I gotta see it to believe it.
Yeah. So anyway, I like the secondary. I especially like the cornerback room. I don't see any top 10 group here on the defense, but this secondary should be a group of strength for this year, especially that cornerback group. So if you're in the audience and you're watching, man, you got some takes, try them out. We've heard from some of you, so we really appreciate it.
Yep. And also make sure after you subscribe to this channel, make sure you check out Box Score Network YouTube channel. Some of our videos get posted on there as well. I know the Terry McLaurin trade request video that made it over to Box Score. So There is some definitely some videos to check out there. I did not update this slide, so I apologize. This has an older video on it. However, the latest video other than our video was the trivia night episode, I believe, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a lot of fun when we did that episode with a bunch of the box score guys, testing our knowledge on different teams. This episode happened to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, so that was a lot of fun. So make sure you go check that out over the Box Score Network YouTube channel. Um, Ben, do we have anything else for our viewers this evening?
Just for our audience, yes, that Robertson has been on a scorched earth hot take tour over the past few weeks, beginning
Yes.
with this Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones business.
Yeah.
But he didn't
Yeah.
stop there. During our latest podcast last week, he took side swipes out of nowhere at the Jaguars and their
Yeah.
fan base.
Yeah. It
He took
did.
a shot at Buffalo Bills Josh Allen, I mean, just out of nowhere, boom. So go check it all out and hear Robertson just he wasn't even attacking division opponents, man. No Giants, Cowboys, or Eagles stuff yet. He's saving all that for the regular season. But in the off season is getting warmed up, kind of hitting these other teams.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I got all year to crap all over my division opponents. But what did I say about Josh? See, this is how bad it. I don't even remember what I said about Josh Allen. What did I say about Josh Allen?
We were talking about how long some of these quarterbacks might
Oh,
play
right.
when we
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
40 starting quarterbacks because of
Yep.
international stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a simple math problem. Okay. How many more years are these quarterbacks going to play? How many more Super Bowls is Patrick Mahomes going to win versus how many other team or quarterbacks going to win Super Bowls? Simple math problem.
Here was the math. Here's how the math went. Josh, according to Robertson, Josh Allen could play for another 27 years and still
Oh
not win a Super Bowl.
God. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, it's possible, man. It's possible he goes the rest for his career without winning one. I mean, there's been many quarterbacks that unfortunately has seen that fate. I mean, same could be true for
Yes,
Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. We don't know.
it's true.
Um, it's just that guy in Kansas City, he's preventing a lot of things from happening, a lot of stories from progressing.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Unless a Terry McLaurin extension happens, don't know, don't know yet what we're gonna do about preseason games, but yeah, if not, we don't do a preseason show. The next one hopefully will be a Terry McLaurin extension video. So we will see you all next time.